Hello, today for review I've got IMR Zenith or Zenith, not sure what is the correct way of pronunciation because YouTube says that pronunciation differs in the United States and in Great Britain, so probably I will use Zenith. And it's IMR Zenith II, so if you're following this audio company, you know that they had R1 Zenith quite a long time ago. It was the development of their R1 model, and many years later, many successful releases later, they decided to go back to that acoustical configuration here, but with newer, more recent drivers. So here used the 14.2mm dynamic driver, much more recent than it was in the past, and the ceramic for piezo tweeter for the high frequencies mainly. I really liked first version of Zenith, so I was really curious how new one will perform. Price is actually noticeably lower. It was official price was $275, but as usual IMR has different discount codes for loyal customers. They have some bespoke and refurbished sales, and as usual by the moment this video will be out, this model will be already sold out. IMR is a boutique company, so they have usually limited runs of different models, and Zenith 2 was not an exception. But anyway, I'm a fan of IMR and I'm reviewing all the gear that I could get. Unfortunately, I can't allow now buying all the new releases. They have a few really expensive but really interesting models with different drivers, so I can't afford buying them all like I did in the past. But anyway, I'm trying to review what I can get, and here you can see Zenith 2, and also EDPAs should be following somewhere in the near future. And anyway, I think this review will be really useful because these models are available on the second-hand market. There is a narrow fan club of this company, and if you're following it, you can get this model if you will be interested. And also I think that IMR is that rare company that I can say that usually offers more value than the price is, especially if we take the price with different discounts and so on. Anyway, let's go back to Zenith 2, let's see what we've got. It came in this nice fabric box or case. I really like this bag handle, it's really convenient. My favorite way of packaging. Inside you'll get manual, earpieces themselves, set of tuning filters, traditional for IMR. They are modular, so there are two parts that can be screwed and unscrewed. You can get 6 versions of mid and high frequencies and 8 types of treble. So you can see that here are just bass filters, and here are assembled spouts with bass and high mid frequencies filter. Actually, they are very consistent in the accessory set, so you're getting 6.3mm adapter, set of tips with 3 pair of silicons, 2 pair of foams and double flange, and the new case with stock cables. Here actually you've got all 3 possible cables. Instead of creating system with some kind of replaceable filters, IMR just provide you, sorry, not filters, jacks. IMR just provides you with 3 cables, and that's it. You'll get 3 leather straps for cable organization, and as a bonus accessory, this nice short clip, and a pretty good pouch for everyday carry of earpieces themselves and storage. In terms of design, it's a great journey back in time to the IMR Zenith with really unusual ideas, but this time they have interesting white painted shell, and you know, I really like the quality of painting here. Of course they are made of metal, and I like this amount of craftsmanship and machine work used here. Really pleasant coating to touch, nice build quality, and everything machined and assembled really well. On the faceplate there is their signature filter, actually not probably a filter, some kind of piston-like system. By rotating this knob, you can make them closed or open back. I'm not sure will it be visible in video, but it works like water valve. By rotating it, it will open and close this back side, so you can get them in the open and closed back variations. In general, I really like the fit of this model. Even since the first releases of IMR, they fitting nice into my ears. I've seen some complaints about this shape and not everyone get a proper fit, but for me they are fitting perfectly and I got zero issues with wearing comfort for this model. And here are the traditional set of filters for tuning, so you can unscrew this tip and replace it. It will be used to change the amount of treble and mid frequencies, and you can screw it back, or you can unscrew the bottom part. Actually, it's possible to see a bit what's going on inside. So bottom part is responsible for low frequencies. You can change amount of bass and its characteristics in the pretty wide range. And they added rubber rings to provide better fit, but you need to be accurate to fit on these screws correctly, and then when it's screwed back it holds really well. It also works as a lip for holding the tips and as a protective grill, so these aspects are also taken care of. So classical IMR design with a bit of refreshment thanks to the white color and really complicated meshing work. Stock cable is made replaceable. Here used typical IMR 2-pin connectors. There is a notch and a groove, but actually you can use any 2-pin connectors with long pins, because they will fit nicely into the socket, so you have a freedom to experiment with cables. Sockets are pretty tight, so cable fit nicely and holds really well here. And cable is not super soft, but actually on the softer side of things. For me it's really comfortable with almost zero microphonics. It's not getting hard when it's cold outside, and these ear hooks are providing a nice secure fit for me. It has really interesting structure that doesn't remind other cables, and IMR spend a lot of time finding proper cable for the earphones in terms of acoustic performance. Here is the splitter with chin slider, and after the splitter it goes just twisted down to the jack. And as you can see, in terms of exterior, everything is done on a really good level here. And of course, about the sound, traditionally for IMR they require a burn-in, not a few hundred hours like some other models, but about 40 to 60 hours at least require for them to settle. And taking into account that they also require finding a proper filters, it's better to burn them in before do some experiments with filters. And I really encourage you to experiment with different types of filters here, because it's an important part of experience with these earphones. There are a lot of questions over the internet which filter combination someone prefers, but you know, your taste and preferences are unique, so really there is a really high probability that you'll find some combinations that you will like more. I prefer the red plus black, but you definitely need to experiment. And of course, trying all 48 combinations can be a bit too much, especially taking into account that you can also close and open them, so it's double the amount of combinations. I suggest you to do first to find the proper type of bass, the amount of low frequencies you'd like by swapping the bottom part, and then with this bottom part experiment with top filters, finding the amount of mids and treble you'd like. For me it's red plus black, but you can find some other combination. People also experiment with tips and with cables, but I like the stock tips. I actually use IMR tips with other earphones sometimes. I got a lot of IMR models and I got a lot of the stock tips, and actually stock cables are also okay for me. And Zenith, in terms of sound, actually it's the model created to be fun, created to be engaging, and definitely not created to be audiophilic. So first it starts with pretty noticeable and big bass. You can get really a lot of bass, or you can reduce its amount with different filters, and you'll get more moderate amount, but still it's a pretty bassy model with good depth of low frequencies and with a good hint of added weight. Actually, it's pretty weighty, pretty massive. Sometimes they're lacking a bit of speed, but they're compensating that with really good, well-developed overtones. So they have a hint of warmth in the bass, and they're not trying to be super fast or super precise, but at the same time resolution of course is pretty decent. But still keep in mind that this is a model for those who like weight also. Really good with acoustic instruments, but especially it's great with genres that requires some big and full-bodied low frequencies, and here is perfect example in my opinion. It's Michael Jackson, Billie Jean, and great bass line, really saturated, really well present thanks to these earphones. It built a great engaging foundation, and taking into account pretty fun mids and trebles that this model delivers, it builds a good striking contrast with low frequencies and upper mids and treble, delivering you even more of fun. Mid frequencies are unusual, they are really forward in terms of dynamics, and they highlighting this part a little, actually not a little bit, noticeably highlighting it. They have good detalization, but they're not trying to focus on the micro contrast. Instead they more focusing on the macro side of things, so they are engaging, punchy, with highlighted and boosted emotions, and with added hint of energy. Especially it's noticeable at the upper mid frequencies, where this piezo driver starts doing its work. And what is also great here is that they're building unusual but really fun stage. They have a good width, but depth of stage is really exceptional here, actually surpassing my expectations for this price tier. You can actually get a bigger stage by turning them to open back model, rotating this knob. But at the same time, bass became a bit less focused, became a bit more diffused, so I prefer them closed back in terms of tuning. So stage is really unusual and surprising. They are not super critical for the quality of record, so for the poorly recorded material they are nice. They are fun, but at the same time resolution is also on a pretty nice level. And as an example for the mid frequencies, I've got Moonspell of Dream and Drama, Midnight Ride. Great album, actually it was recorded in 1995 if I remember right, and it's still hard to believe that young guys from Portugal created such a great masterpiece. It's one of the, in my opinion, I'm not a great, like some kind of super professional, but in my subjective opinion it's one of the greatest albums in the history of metal. Really creative, really saturated with different things, and Dream and this track starts with slow part and then it became faster, more aggressive, and that short keyboard solo at the middle part of this track is absolutely out of this world, and this model plays it pretty well. I'm lacking a bit of micro contrast focus, but at the same time dynamics and forwardness and emotional representation of this model suit this track really well, giving you a really fun experience. And the treble is another part that I like, but actually it's not everyone's cup of tea, because they are a bit on the aggressive side of things. These piezo drivers, they have great extension, and that makes model a bit critical in terms of quality. They require a nicely recorded treble. But at the same time they adding a bit of additional energy, and that means that it's not the model for those who like reduced treble. It's definitely not the model with comfortable amount of high frequencies. and in exchange you're getting a pretty good layering, actually surprisingly good for this price tire, and you're getting a lot of overtones, you're getting great extensions. So in terms of treble development, it's a pretty fun model, especially if you are a fan of this contrast representation, because you're getting a bit weighty bass and at the same time nice technical treble. Probably it's actually the treble the secret of expanded stage here, because they helping you to get more air and small nuances. And as an example, it's Watchmaker by Steven Wilson. It's lacking a bit of definition in the bass to represent this track fully, but treble with all that percussion and guitar works is really stellar. And actually I'm getting distracted with great treble here, so I'm being less critical for the rest of frequency response, and I like this model with this track. Speaking about the sources, actually they play better with something more natural. So if, for example, like Heidi's digital tonal converter or some natural audio player like FIO M11 series, for example, or something like that. But it's subjective, of course, it's a matter of your preferences, but I prefer them with something more natural. And I won't be doing any comparisons here, actually, because they really stand aside from the rest of different models. They simply not comparable with typical hybrids with balanced armatures, because they have these piezo drivers in the treble area. So the only model they can be compared, in my opinion, it's the original Zenith, but here you get a bit bigger bass and actually better developed upper mids and treble, because here used some new generation of this piezo driver. So probably I will summarize it here. It's unusual, unique model that gives you also unusual experience, and that's actually what every fan expects of IMR. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.